The more we build our understanding of meta strategies and a foundation of life in general, then the more context we have. You see, at any one moment, we only have so much focus, right, consciously, and then separately, our brain is like a mechanism that only has so much capacity, which it has a lot. A lot of the problem with our brain is when it's out kind of fighting itself. But because we only have so much conscious focus, we need to find good shortcuts, useful shortcuts. The more things we can cut off correctly, the better. The more we can narrow our focus in a way that's correct, the better. So the more that you build, like we're doing in this whole Alchemy series, the more things you build that you know for certain and that are also pervasive, that come up all the time. This idea of arbitrariness. It's ironic. It's all part of this BS about this defense for the defense, that what I'm talking about is like deep. It should be reverse. The stuff I'm talking about is stuff that mixes with our everyday thinking constantly. It's the most useful stuff. We're always using it. And by crossing off major errors, they could be crossed off forever if we understand them properly. And then people spend so much of their time, and in a lot of cases, really all their time, looking in the wrong place in life to be successful and so forth. Even on a practical level with business, if people understand that making money is based in the idea of value for others, and value is determined if someone voluntarily is going to pay their own money for something, then it's valuable to them. Value isn't some inherent thing. It's inherent within that. That's what makes monetary value, is whether a person will going to spend their own money on it and how much. That's it. And there's other ideas of value that people have, but that's it. That's the one thing of value. Now, there's other things that can matter in life, but regarding making money, and I'm not saying that you need to maximize this, but regarding making money, that's it. And by understanding that it's about one and only one thing, I've talked about it's about building your offer, just a restatement of this same thing. What can you build, create for yourself, that other people will pay their own money for, and most of their own money for? People spend so much of their focus outside of specifically creating value. They have all sorts of other shortcuts or ways that they look at making money, none of which are as correct as it's about you having something other people will pay for. Once you think of it that way, then you can see why you need a USP, a unique selling proposition. It doesn't have to be unique in the whole world, but it needs to be unique in where the other person is looking, because then you'll be in a bidding war with whoever else is in that person's attention field, right, or awareness field. And kind of, I mean that in a very simplistic way, just what I obviously mean by it. The potential person is going to pay you money. If there's a whole bunch of people they're aware of that have the same USP or don't have the same USP, because there's a whole bunch, then you're going to be in a bidding war with those people, all the way down to minimum wage or less. If you realize that's the only place you want to focus, that's still a huge area to focus in, but it's much more narrow than having otherwise. By having more and more things like that, and then you can narrow it further. And you can do this in all kinds of places, with relationships, where how do I spend my time most effectively in relationships, getting what I want out of a relationship, including the other person being happy is, of course, one of the things you might want. The more you build things that are relevant, that come up a lot, and they'll often be characterized as deep, but again, I've made fun of that already. How is it deep if it's constantly used? Is that thing about value, is that deep? I mean, it's just helpful, right? Whether it's deep or not is a weird kind of distinction. It's kind of overall, this idea of is something deep is pretty much mostly an unhelpful distinction. Probably more of that defense thing, trying to keep you from looking at things too closely. So you develop more things that you can know, and that'll cross where you're looking around and narrow your correct focus. And then you can do your best choice because you're only having to look around at a smaller area, so you can make a better choice. If we take a supermarket shelf of jelly and we put a bunch of bad, untasty, unhealthy jellies in there, then that's purely going to make your best choice harder. Not even harder is the wrong, it'll be less efficient for you to make the right choice. The more you're able to make distinctions and exclude groups of jellies correctly, down to fewer and fewer jellies to pick from, then the more efficiently you're going to use your time and focus in making the right decision. And the way I make decisions is in that kind of inverse way. I keep cutting things out. It's like the way that some people talk about being a sculptor. The idea is that the sculpture's already in there and they're just cutting out the part that isn't there. And that is how I make decisions. It's so effective, and the way I do it is specifically this. I'm eliminating things that I know have to be wrong until there's so little in there that I can just see, oh, that's right. When it's a small enough area that you're looking at, you can see the rest is wrong too. If you're choosing, if you narrow it down to only a very few choices that you can all see distinctly, then you can pick the one that's the best. If there's too many choices, too confusing for your focus, and the incorrect choices get in your way and you can't see clearly.